Okay, we're on Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. Amrav Chanan Bar Rava. Hani himi v'hig misachim bu. These are like thorns and thistles, like a bush, Rashi says. You can use it as schach. Abaya Amar b'hizmi misachachim, b'higi lo misachachim. With hizmi, you can use it as schach. With higni, you can't. My time. What's wrong with higni? Kiva de nosri tarpayu. The leaves of this bush fall off. It's going to fall into a person's food in the sukkah. Shavik levinofik, it'll drive him out of the sukkah. Arav Gilam Arav. Hai apkuta de dikla mesachim behu. Palm branches of a palm tree. You can use for schach. Avagav de agidi. Even though on one end they're connected, but the person didn't connect it, eged bidei shamayim. It's connected the way it grows. And therefore that's not called eged. Lo shmei eged. By being connected, it looks like things that are roped together, which is like building material, which you can't use for schach. And avagav dehader ogid lahu. So maybe you will tie up the leaves on the other side of it, which are more spread out, and you want to sort of confine them. That's igid bechad lo shmei eged. Tying something up on one side is not considered that it's an aguda. These are reeds. These are multiple reeds that come out of one place. You could use them for schach. Avagav dagidin, even though they're bound in one area, they're joined on one side, then they spread. We said before, eged b'dei shamayim lo shmei eged. The fact that that's how it grows naturally, it's not considered an aguda. And afagav dehader agidlu, even though the other side you tie up, igid bechad lo shmei eged. Tying something up on one side is not considered an aguda. Tana ma'achi konim v'dukronim mesachkin behem. You can make schach with these reeds. So versus konim pshita, we already said you can do it. It's a davar pashu. Ema kanim shel dukronim mesach kiber. You have to say reeds of these special type where they grow together. So even though you might think that since it's aguda, you shouldn't use it, you can use it. Hanim rirta de agma. This is called moror of the lake. You can use it for moror, the Seder night. Meisvei ezov, hyssop that you use for poraduma, you have to use regular ezov. Lo ezov yava, not Greek ezov. Lo ezov kochli, not blue ezov. Lo ezov midbori, not desert ezov. Lo ezov romi, not Roman ezov. And any ezov sheyesh lo shem levai, any ezov that has a specific name, like we just went through. So how can you say that moror de agam, which sounds like it has a shem levoi, how can you say it can be used? This price says it can't be used. Amar Abaya, depends. Kol shenishtara shmo kodem matan Torah. Let's say prior to Matan Torah, there were different versions of an item, like Roman Azov or Greek Azov or something like that. And then Ubasa Torah v'higbid aleh. And by the Torah just writing Azov plain, obviously was makpid that it shouldn't be the other type of Azov. So that's biyadua sheyesh lo shem levoy. That is the one where shem levoy will be excluded. But hani lo nishtan shmayu kodem matan Torah klal. This Mor of the lake didn't have a special name prior to Matan Torah. It was all a Mor. Therefore, when the Torah says Mor, it would include that one as well. Rava Amar, a different teretz. Hanim rirta destama shmayu. Really, it's not called Lake Moror. It's Moror. Hai dekori le rirta de agma. The fact that you're referring it to the Moror of the lake is mishum de mishtakach b'am. That's where you find it. But it's not like it's a specific like Italian tangerine or something. It's regular Moror. I
would say an Italian tangerine is you find it in Italy, just like a Maror of the marsh, you find it in another. There's no difference, Italy and marsh.
Fine. So
just where it is.
Italian tangerine maybe not have been a good example. There are examples of different types of fruit which has a specific name, like a blood orange. There's an orange. And then there's a different kind of orange, maybe a Chinese orange, or
there's Italian parsley. There's
Mexican
oregano.
But we said Ezov. We said Ezov Yavan, or Ezov Romi.
Right. So that refers to a different species of Ezov. Like maybe there's a pear, there's a Chinese pear, and then there's those are perhaps, again, I don't know the botanical aspect of whether they're all considered pears, but there are things where when they're given a specific name, it's really a different species.
Yeah, but like a Janova etrog, an etrog from
Genoa.
Huh?
Well, that's from Genoa.
Right. So that's the same species. We're allowed to use it.
Yeah. So they're all etrog, and that's like what Kenny was saying. It comes from Greece, from Genoa. It doesn't make it a different species. But these Azov Yavan could not be used because they were not, the Torah specified Azov, and that's a generic Azov, and not, but those the Gemara explained in the first teretz, they already had specified name prior to Matan Torah. So then when the Torah said Azov, it meant to exclude those. But
and etrog, it didn't mean to exclude?
No.
Because you don't have you also in the Torah it says an etrog. It doesn't say.
It's the Priyat Sadar.
Yeah, Priyat Sadar.
So the Gemara there, Chazal learned what's a Priyat Sadar? Havi etrog. That's a Chazal later. But here the Torah actually used the word Azov. So a specific Azov that had a special name prior to Matan Torah, that would be excluded. But the Moror of the Agam didn't have a name of Agam Moror. It was Moror. The reason it was called Moror Agam because you found it growing near a lake, which is it's not a species like Azov Yavani or Azov Romi. That's how Rav explains. The different teretz than Abaya. Rav Chizda. Igid Bechad. If you have a singular item, right, you can't make an igid, you can't be ma'aged a singular branch. Lo shme'eged. Shalosh shmei eged. Think about three hadassim that we use on sukkahs in the lulav. So if you have three of them, you can be ma'aged and tie it, and it's considered a kesher that creates an eged. Shnayim, machlokes Rabbi Yosef Rapon. If you have only two, that's a machlokes, whether that's, if you tie it up, whether that's considered an eged. This not. Mitzvah's Azov, the mitzvah of Azov is shlosha klochim. You have to have three different stems. Uvahen shlosha giva. On each stem, you have to have those three leaves coming out from the same root. Rabbi Yossi Omer mitzvah says of shlosha givoilim. You have to have the three leaves. And usharav, if you didn't have three stems, but you're left with two, the gardum of koshu, and maybe a little bit of the third one, because the egg got damaged. If the other one, the remaining one, the leaves got damaged, it's still kosher. So kasaka daitin, midisharav shnayim, that if you started with three and you were left with two, and we say it's kosher, we assume tchilaso nami shnayim. That if you started off with two and you made it, if you tied that up, it's considered an eged. So why did it say shlosha? According to the Manda Omar, like Rabbi Yossi, who says that two is enough. Le mitzvah and a muvcher, you should have three, but with two, it's also kosher. Now, umid Rabbi Yossi shlosha le mitzvah. If Rabbi Yossi is going to learn that having three is not me'ikar adin, really two is me'ikar adin, three is just to make it mitzvah and a muvcher, then the Rabbanan who argue with Rabbi Yossi hold shlosha is not just la mitzvah, but it's la'akev. That means you need to have three. If you have less than three, it wouldn't work. So, is that truth? Asks the Gemara about Tanya. Rabbi Yossi oimer ezov tchilasu shnayim ushar vechad pasul. That if you start off with two, lechatchila with a little small third one, it's pasul. Eino kosher. When does he say it's kosher? Ad she'tchilaso shlosha. You started off with three, and one of them got damaged, and you left with shnayim. So we see Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold that lechatchila you can use two. So based on that baraisa we just quoted, the Gemara has to switch the shitas. Because we've just proved that Rabbi Yossi, it's la'akev if you don't have three. So therefore, the Rabbi Yossi, shlosha la'akev. And the Rabbanan don't need three me'ikar adin. It's only lemitzvah, me'mitzvah, and amuvcha. And now the Gemara is going to bring a rayat, a baraisa, to prove that point. As Rashi says, va'atanya b'nichusa. This second hatanya is to help us prove the case. Ezov tchilaso shnayim ushyorav echad kosher. If you start off with two and shirayim one, so two and a mashu kosher. Ve'eno pasul ad sheyet tchilaso ushyorav echad. It's pasul if you started off with only one and a shirayim. So this is obviously the sheet of the Chachamim, period. So shiar of echad pasul. I understand if you have two and a shirayim of one, why should that be pasul? Amrit shiar of echad kosher. You told me before if you have two and one shirayim, it's okay. Ela you have to be misakein the language and say ad she'tehei tchilaso k'shiar of echad. If you only have one, so the Chachamim Rashi says you need three for the mitzvah, and then two is la'akev, and therefore if you have one, it's pasul. That's the sheet of the Chachamim. So the epoch was proved. Darsh Merema. Merema asked the fine question. Hani isuraisa desura mesachkim behu, afal gav de agdam. These are like bundles of reeds that were made in Syria. You can use it as chach, even though they tie them together. Liminyana ba'almahu da'agdan. It's tied together like for a count. You don't leave it, like a dozen. So they tie a dozen together to sell like that until they sell it. But whoever buys it is going to undo the tying, and therefore you can be mesachich with it. Amar Vabahani Tzrifi de Urbani. This is like willow branches. Kivin Shahutra Roshe Madonim Shalahem. I guess they're tied together up on top, and if once you release that ksherin, then you can use it for schach. Freit the Gemara v'ha'agide mitatoi, but they're tied to on the bottom as well. Rav Papa d'Sharalu, you have to undo the bottom as well. Ravuna says even if you don't undo the bottom, because kolega chena asu l'tatalo, if the when you tie them together it wasn't made in a way to make it easier for you to carry it, then that's not considered loshmei eged. That's not an eged that would passel for schach. Okay. Amar Rav Amar Shmuel. Yirako sha'arnu chachamim adam yotze ben yidei chavasu b'Pesach. The vegetables that the chachamim told us are kosher for morer. Mevi'in es atuma. If there's a tumas mace below one of these vegetables, it will convey tuma to the vegetable like anything else that is oil over a mace, if it's makabel tuma. Ve'ein choytzitzim b'fnei tuma. It doesn't serve as a chatzitza. The tuma will go up high. Upoislin basukah mishum avir. If it's the status of a food, right? If it's a vegetable, you can't use them l'shem schach. It's as if it's not there. It's viewed as if it's empty space. My time. These kind of vegetables, if they dry up, they're just going to blow away. It's command less nudami. It's as if they're not there. Person is harvesting grapes to put into his wine press to make wine. Ein lohen yodois. Those bunches of grapes, now a yad is something to grasp onto, like the branches of a grape, bunches of grapes. La halacha, they're not considered like yad. Normally, if you're metame a yad, think about a handle of a coffee cup. So that would be considered a yad. So if the yad is metame, it metames the coffee cup and what's in it. Or a food will have a yad, maybe like the husk of a corn. If it's metame the husk, if a husk is considered a yad, it will convey tumah to the corn itself. Rav Huna is telling us that if you harvest grapes for the purpose of making wine, so you're not using it as a food directly, like eating the grape, but rather you're going to press it, there's no din of yod, which is a kula. If something is metame, for example, the branch it does not metame the grape. You don't, since they're going to be pressed anyways. There's no, you don't need those branches holding on to the grapes to stick around anymore. There's no purpose for it because you're using it for wine, not to eat. If you're going to eat the grapes, well, the branches would be considered a yad, but since you're using for the wine, it doesn't have a status of a yad. Rav Menashe bar Gadam Ravuna hakoitzer l'schach ein lo yodos. If you harvest straw in order to use it for schach, the straw, let's say if it's connected to wheat stalks, it's not a yad to the shiboilus. Because for the schach, we're not interested in the wheat stalks. by themselves, the wheat stalks would be pasul l'schach because it's a food, which is mekabel tum. Anything mekabel tum you can't use. So the kash, the straw that's connected to it, like the chaff, it's not considered a yad that if it becomes tummy, it conveys it to the wheat itself. Now, mandam or koitzer, the one that learned that a yad is not, it's not a yad when you harvest wheat. So kol shekain boitzer. So certainly that mandarma would hold that if you're harvesting grapes for wine, it certainly would not be a yad. Because in a wine press, Rashi says, Lo nichalei b'hanech yodas. You don't want the branches to be there in the first place. The lo nichalei, the lo nimtze l'chamri, it's gonna make the wine have all sorts of sediment in it. But vice versa is not like that. Mandamer boitzer she'en lo yadois. The mandama that says that when you harvest grapes for a wine press, the branches don't have a halachic status of a yad, that mandama aval koitzer yesh lo yados might hold that the straw that's connected to wheat is a yad. The nichale de l'sachich puhu kehechi de lo libadrin. You want that straw. This makes it easier to put the schach on the roof with the shibolim. So the straw won't go flying away one from another. So there he might want it to remain. So if the balabai says nichale, so it would have the status of a yad. So this was Rav Menashe who said this. Name it Rav Menashe bar Gada Tanoihi. Is this a machlokes Tanoim? The Tanya. Soiche tehenin uvahen te'enim. Leaves of figs, and there are figs attached to them. Parchile uvahen anovim. These are vines, and there are grapes on the vines. Kashin, straw, uvahen shibolim, and connected to the straw are wheat stalks. Mechabdois, these are date leaves, uvahen tmarim, and dates are growing from them. Kulan im psoilis meruba ala oichlin ksheva. If the branches and all the things that you don't eat are in a majority as compared to the food that's connected to it, you can use it for schach. But the imlav, if the majority is the fruit, then it's possible. So that's the Tanakam. Acherim oimim ad shiu kashin merubin ala yodois v'ala oichlin. The straw has to be more in quantity than the various food aspects and the various branches attached to the food. Now, what's this machlokes all about? My lav b'hakamiflagi. Perhaps mar savar yesh lehen yadois, that there is the one that says that the straw has to be in a majority over the yadois, holds that they have a status of a yad. Umar savar ein lehen yadois. And the other mandamar holds that they don't have a status of a yad. So Rav Abba, the way Rav Abba is learning, vaday tanoihi. It's certainly a machlokes tanoim, but the Rav Menashe, the second way where it doesn't go both ways, maybe the other way he won't learn. Rav Menashe bar Gada milema tanoihi. Maybe it's not a machlokes tanoim. Amar Rav Menashe, kulam savri hakoitzer l'schach ein lo yodos. Everybody holds that if you harvest straw with shibolim attached for the purpose of schach, everybody holds that there's no din yad, and therefore tumah will not go from the yad to the shibolim, because we proved already before that the person is happy that the straw is there, so it won't scatter. However, if you harvested because you were going to eat the wheat, and then you changed your mind, it's only secondarily you changed your mind and you wanted to do it for schach. So since initially you thought of it as food, there would be a din yad. You can't get rid of that because it was a yad for food. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? Eat koitis and lachila. How could my tamay drabanan that say you're allowed to use it for schach? Yeah, the Chachamim say once he changes his mind, you're allowed to change your mind. Maybe you harvested it originally for eating, but if you change your mind and you want to use it for schach, the Chachamim say you're bottle your original machshava. So even though it might have had the status of a yad when he had a machshava that he was harvesting it for food, but now he changed his mind. It's not food anymore. So how can you say it's a yad? But the Gemara says that we don't hold of that. If you just change your mind, does that halachically create a bitul machshava in what you originally did regarding Kabbalah's tuma? I'm going to show you it's not so. Vatnan. Kol hakelim yordin lidei tuma b'machshava. Vein olim etum osan lo b'shurim ma'isa. We're going to see machshava is not enough to change tuma status. So that's going to be a problem in terms of the answer we just gave, that it worked for the Chachamim because he changed his mind. But by changing his mind, it doesn't change Tumah status. So it should remain a Yad. Okay. So tomorrow, 7:30,